So is everyone here familiar with A Course in Miracles? Good. Then we don't have to introduce A Course in Miracles. We can introduce us. Is everyone here familiar with us?
Yeah.
You're not?
Mostly, but a couple maybe not.
So what are we?
We are here as messengers of light.
We've both been on this path with A Course in Miracles since 2005. Okay.
Well, actually, I picked it up in 2006, so but pretty close.
Yeah, very close. And well, where should I start? For me, A Course in Miracles came in like a bomb in my life. It just changed everything. When it came in, I was a student at a university to become a psychologist, and I just couldn't continue. There was just nothing in the books, in the reading, in the psychology program that caught me anymore. I had started it because I wanted to know everything about the mind, but I felt like it was very flat and empty. I didn't really learn about the mind in the psychology program. And then I went to a retreat with a very powerful lady in Sweden, and she didn't mention A Course in Miracles. She did talk about Jesus. She seemed to have some kind of powerful communion with Jesus. Jesus had healed her from some 15-year lasting stomach issue that was like very intense for her. She was bedridden, and every night Jesus had come and like taken her swimming in a healing lake every night, and it was an actual experience. And I thought, this lady has something really powerful. So after this whole retreat with her, I called her up and I said, I was guided to say, is there something I can read that you know of? And she said, Conversations with God, she said. I said, no, that's not it. She said, well, then it's only A Course in Miracles. I said, yeah, okay, that's it. And I could feel it, you know. So I ordered the book and it came the next day. I started reading it, and I haven't stopped ever since. But at that time, I just couldn't stop reading it. I came from a Christian background, and it just answered all the gaps in Christianity that I, you know, felt there was just so much missing when I grew up. So the course came in and just answered everything, and I thought, if this is true, I'm going to follow it. I'm going to do whatever, wherever it leads me, whatever I need to do. And it changed everything. I uprooted my life in Sweden. I left family. I left the psychology program. I just couldn't stay in it. I went there the first lecture after summer holiday in 2006, and I was sitting there, and they had flown in a lecturer, a professor from another town. He was social psychologist, and he spoke about people who go beyond the norm, people who he said it's people who go in the flower beds rather than on the beaten path, people who don't take university studies, but they get self-actualized. They find something to share. And the whole lecture, the whole class, he spoke about this. We were about 70 students there, and my heart was beating all the way through because I felt like he spoke about me. And in the end, I just stood up and I thanked him, and I said, well, this was all for me. I felt, and I'm called to just leave the university and everything. So say goodbye to them. And I never came back there, and that was a huge step, because it felt like taking a step out of the world. Like in the world, you need an education, you need, to prepare for your future. So I felt like maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm really mad. So I thought that for a while, and I went home, and I didn't leave my house very much other than for long walks for like 3 months. I just sat down on the floor and I read the course, I meditated, I was guided to some yoga postures. That's all I did for 3 months. But I prayed. I was like, well, I believe in this. So show me what is my next step. What am I to do? And so that was all I did for 3 months. Then I received this email from the Transcendental Meditation group and inviting me to Fairfield, Iowa, to come for a year and meditate for 8 hours a day. And this had nothing to do with the Course in Miracles, but it just caught me. I just felt it. Just felt this. I must do this. And I thought, how am I going to do this? And I didn't know how, but everything was going to be provided except from the plane ticket. So I was going to arrive in Fairfield. I was going to be given a place to stay in someone's home because they volunteered to receive 2,000 women and 2,000 men from the whole world, from different countries, because they were going to do this peace of the world experiment. They wanted to create world peace, and they had made calculations that if they brought in 2,000 women and 2,000 men from different countries, we were going to meditate in 2 different golden domes for 8 hours a day. Then that was going to create world peace, or take a step towards world peace, because they made experiments and they find that the crime goes down in areas where you meditate. But for me, the reason was only my own enlightenment. That was because I was into the course, but I thought if I meditate that much, that's gonna bring me home. So I went there, but first it wasn't really easy because I was a single mom, 10-year-old son, and everybody said, don't go, don't leave him. You have to wait till he's 18 years old, things like that. And these were my own thoughts, like a mother doesn't leave her child. That's crazy, So I had huge doubts, but yet I couldn't remove this desire to go. It was so strong. But really, I felt like I couldn't really go. And one day I just said that to God. I just said, God, this is your idea and not mine. I can't follow it. I'm a mom, don't you know? Mm-hmm. So I said no to this calling. And in that moment, I just felt very disconnected from myself and very lost and very empty. And I sat down again in my house, in my bedroom, and sat on the bed for hours. I just sat there feeling really alienated, really blank. And I just sat there for hours. And then sometime in the afternoon, was this presence that suddenly was all around. And in this presence were 2 light beings. And my mom and my dad, in their higher selves, stood there. They were huge, and they were just love and light. And they, through communion or through telepathic communication beyond words, they answered all my questions. They were like the truth. I felt I was beyond time. I was beyond form. They were not. There wasn't like this realm where you can touch things. It was the truth, and I felt that this other realm of form is not the truth. Time is not real. That was very clear. And in this communication, they said to me, we're grateful that you're going to go on this journey. They were so beautiful and so full of love. And I would say they have nothing to do with my earthly parents, other than it was them. It was their true selves. But I cannot say that there is any other resemblance with them than that I knew it was them. Because in my experience, my whole life, there has been, many hardships with my parents. They are not those light beings. But yet it was them. So I realized I have a complete perceptual problem that I need to deal with. Because that perception, from the timeline has nothing to do with this reality, with who they are. So my perception is something wrong here, and I want to work on that. So I said yes to go to Fairfield, because that's what I knew. That was the next step I knew. So I did that. I went there. I was guided to stay there for only 3 weeks, and then I was guided onwards to the Peace House in Cincinnati, to David Hoffmeister, and to be there with him. And I didn't know what that was about. I was just called to be around David, and he'd called me there when I was in Fairfield in a moment where I felt very, very scared. I went through something really deep because I left my son in Sweden, and who knows what. It was very deep. It was like existential fear. And in that moment, he called me, and I had written an email to him saying I would like to come to the Peace House. And then he called me. And he said, "You want to come to the Peace House?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And at the same time, the lady where I stayed, she literally threw me out of the house because she was afraid that she thought I was flirting with her boyfriend, who was also in the house, which I wasn't. But she said, "I'll buy you a bus ticket to leave. Where do you want to go?" So I said, "I go to Cincinnati." So just a few days later, I was on this Greyhound bus. It took so many hours to get to Cincinnati, and arrived in the middle of the night. David wasn't there. He sent Santa Claus to pick me up. This very big man with beard, Charles. He lived there. He picked me up, and David wasn't even there for a whole week. So I was there. I didn't know what I was doing there. I was like, what's going on? But I just followed the guidance. Then David came there, and I had very powerful connection with David. But then I thought, because when you have a powerful connection with someone, also fear comes up. It's like this fear of, can I really trust him? What's going to happen here? So I questioned him. I thought, and I perceived things, perception, like I had realized I need to heal my perception. And we do project all our beliefs. So I projected a lot of beliefs on him in the beginning. I thought, he's out to get something from me. He's not reliable. I had all kinds of ideas come up. So one night I just sat up in the kitchen and I thought, I need to get out of here. And I had perceived that he had been doing strange things. And I thought, this is not safe. And in the morning I thought, well, I don't want to just run away. I need to test him. So I'm going to test him. So I stared at him just. Said, "Play no games with me. You better not play games with me because I want to trust you." And he was like, "Yeah, and we eye gazed for a moment, and I suddenly just saw myself. I just saw the oneness that we are one. I just saw that he's me, and there's really nothing to fear. And a little bit later, he sat by his computer and he said, "Oh, there's an email from you here, and it's saying that you want to be here." He said. I said, "What?" I sent that email from Fairfield, 2 weeks ago. He said, no, it came now. So he had not seen it, or it actually arrived that morning. And I thought, this is spirit. This is like spirit telling me that it's safe. You know, spirit handled the timeline there. Normally you send an email and it arrives, less than a minute later, but this email took like 2 weeks. So yeah, that was just a very strong sign that I was meant to be there. And then the mind training started. Or first it was like a spiritual honeymoon time, because I joined with his mind, because when I felt safe, when I felt like I could trust him, it was like this enormous love and light experience that started and just went on and on. And I literally felt like I wasn't in time. I didn't see things. I didn't see form. I was just in this powerful telepathic light experience, seemingly with David's mind. It was like with the truth. But in that, when I felt like, okay, I can trust this guy. I can trust that I trust spirit through him, 100%, more than I trust my own mind. That was actually the feeling. And I thought, okay, I'm going to invite anything that is unhealed in my psyche to come up. And so I did. I felt safe enough to make a prayer. And the prayer said, okay, let anything unhealed come up. So this spiritual honeymoon went on. And then one morning I woke up and I felt a little weird. I felt like I was analyzing. Felt like I was, suddenly I was seeing things. And I saw a table and I was like, David. And I was going to like challenge David. I said, David, I see the table. It's real. And it was this kind of ego triumph feeling of like, I can triumph over God. Like the ego, that's what this world is actually. But we're not in touch with that. We think we are innocent, sometimes victims to circumstances. But in that moment, I felt I was in the ego. I was like triumphant, saying, this is real, I'm right and you're wrong, basically. And he was just loving, he was just looking at me saying, yeah, it's a matter of time. He said, it's a matter of time. And I thought I was brilliant. It was, the table is matter. It's a matter made up from the belief in time. Plus, the other meaning of what he said was, it's a matter of time until I, will realize the truth. But this was like a start of like a downward spiral. Like the ego came up more and more, and I felt more and more afraid of David, distant, to the point that I left. I just took off without any money, I just tried to get back to Sweden, to my old life. I tried to find safety in the form. I tried to become a mother again. I got a job, but I was like, I wasn't there. I was like a deer in the headlights, or I didn't know where I was. Like it was actually a time of very deep fear. And most of the time I just told myself to take one step in front of the other, But I felt lost. I felt disconnected from love. I had experienced oneness. I had experienced that there is no time. But somehow, I had not worked through my own beliefs. So I found myself in the midst of them, and trying to be in the past, be with my family and try to make things work. And I was surprised that nobody put me in the mental hospital, because I couldn't really, I felt like I couldn't function. But there was a part of me that remembered everything. I knew how to talk, I knew how to behave, but I wasn't fully there. But nobody seemed to discover that, so. And it wasn't like I could seek help, I felt my deepest prayer at that time was, I wish I could talk to somebody that would understand me right now. And I couldn't think of anyone. I mean, even David, I didn't connect with. I felt he was scary. I felt like maybe he had ruined my life, something else. So for like 7-8 months, I was in a deep fear. And then I started to connect with some Course in Miracles people. And then a few months later, I did call David, and he invited me to come to travel with him in Australia and to do gatherings with him, which I said yes to. And then the real mind training started. And that wasn't this high experience anymore with him. It was more like facing the ego every day and releasing it, working with my mind, and there was a lot. There was a lot of guilt coming up, because as we know from the Course, the guilt is the main issue here. The guilt from believing we have separated from God, and for me, the guilt came in the way of feeling bad for staying in people's homes there in Australia. I had always tried to manage and take care of myself, and there people were very loving, and they offered me a bed and food, and I felt, yeah, David is worthy of that, but I'm not. And it was very hard to receive, and so I faced a lot of guilt in many different ways. And so that was the beginning of the mind training. And mind training means to learn to think with God. Sometimes we maybe think mind training is something heavy or something that doesn't sound so attractive, but I think it's very attractive, because to learn to think with God is like to let God's thoughts flow through us, and it's effortless. So I want that training, but it takes a lot of looking at our own mind, like all the time. I used to say we have a full-time job, and that's to look at our own mind. And often we want to look at other people's minds, and we want to help other people and fix them and make them change, but that doesn't really work. So yeah, so I stayed with David for many years, like 13 to 14 years. Not like just with him. It was community. I had another marriage, and I did a lot of gatherings and community, and then in 2019 I started hearing the guidance. It's time to leave the nest. It's time to leave the security of being around David, of being in this, this ministry that is very pure and powerful. It's time to trust me even more, Spirit said. And I kept hearing it for a few months, but I didn't want to hear it, because it was a scary thought. So that was my next step in trust, was to take a leap out of that setting, of that community, and not take almost anything with me, and then trust guidance. I was sharing earlier how powerful that was. Like when I let go of everything, I've never felt so safe. I felt so safe and so guided. So yeah, and then I connected with Barret, and we started joining and talking. We had this really sweet connection where we support each other, and you had this vision of this spiral you want to show.
Yeah, just very soon after we started talking, it was clear we were just very helpful to each other, and there was this kind of deep love we felt, even just as in the friendship that was forming in the beginning. And I got this image of like kind of like a double helix, like the DNA, but that we were kind of climbing up two ladders side by side, and that there were certain things that maybe Jenny was a couple rungs above me, and she could kind of help me up those rungs. There were certain things maybe I was a rung or two ahead, and I could help her up those rungs. There's just this real feeling of harmony and support, and it really just continues to this day.
Yeah. So it was like a friendship, a very supportive friendship. We had calls weekly, I would say, and joining. And then one day he's like, "I'm in love with you." I said, "No, let's not go there."
I don't want to ruin a good thing. But that didn't stop my heart from being full of love for her.
He tried to let it go, but
I gave it over, but it just kept flowing through me.
Yeah. So then this COVID hit, and I was in Ireland, he was in the US, but we decided we're going to meet. So he came over to Ireland, but he almost didn't come into the country because you can't just come in during COVID to the country if you're not living there. So.
With a one-way ticket, they were a little suspicious.
That's literally what happened.
Yeah, so they actually pulled me to the side when I was going through customs because, again, it seemed a little fishy to them, and they started to tell me, you need to buy a return ticket back to the U.S. before you leave this customs area, before we let you through out of the airport. It has to be within a week from now, and you have to be on that plane out of Ireland. And I was like, this is not my plan. I was not. I want to be with Jenny.
So he didn't do it. He sat down and prayed.
I sat down and prayed, and then the customs agent came and said, like, why aren't you doing this? You need to buy this ticket now. And I said, well, we're actually planning on, going to France already. Because Jenny had gotten this guidance, we should go to France in a week and a half after I arrived. So I explained that.
Which was against the rules, but I heard it so clearly.
Because there was a 2-week quarantine. So that's why I was a little I wasn't sure how I should share that. Because at that point, the rules were I needed to go to her house and be in complete quarantine for 2 weeks before I could even leave the house, basically. So I thought, well, I can't say I'm going to France in a week and a half. But at this point, all they wanted to know is that I wasn't going to try to stay in Ireland illegally past the 90 days. So to hear that I was leaving in a week and a half, they kind of softened a little bit. But then she said to me, this customs agent said to me, "Who is this Jenny to you?" And with all my heart, I said, "I love her." I could feel almost like blew her back a little bit, and she had to go. I had to go meet with my boss. She goes back to the back room, and then she said, "Well, if you're planning on leaving in a week and a half anyway, I will stamp your passport for 2 weeks, but you have to be out of Ireland within 2 weeks." And you don't have to buy this flight back to the U.S. So let you through.
And it was like an empty airport, and I walk in this long corridor, and I see him standing there.
It's like a scene from a movie.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Early morning.
Yeah. And then it was just guided for us to go deeper and deeper. I mean, I could only stay in Europe for 90 days, unless we got married. And so I was pretty clear in my heart. That sounded like a great idea. I'd actually told Jenny that before I came to Ireland, and she was like, oh boy. But it just kept being so clear, I don't want to be anywhere else. I don't want to be, doing anything else than to be holding your hand and on this journey together.
Yeah.
Pretty soon she was on that page too.
Yeah. So in February of 2021, we got married in a little town in France, a little town in the Pyrenees. There was almost nobody there. I mean, We stayed in a resort that Spirit had guided us to. It's really low cost because it wasn't in use because of COVID. So we stayed there and we got married in this town hall.
Sweet little town
Very
hall
charming.
in this little village that we lived in. If you're going to get married, you get married by the mayor of the town. So this cute little French mayor, I mean, he wasn't that little actually, but he was very cute. He conducted the ceremony.
Yeah. And then we were guided to move to Spain, and we've been in Spain ever since.
Moved to Spain 2 days after we got married. Loaded up the car and drove across the border.
Yeah, and since about 2013, I have had this vision of Spain, that I would serve from Spain. Spain would be my base. So, and I knew even the area, and now we have arrived in that area. We have moved to like several different places in Spain and come closer and closer to this area, and now we are probably in the house Spirit wants us to be, but it's not without challenges. We're still not. It's not our house, or it's never going to be our own house, because we have a foundation. We don't really want the ownership. We want everything to go to the spiritual work. So we started a non-profit foundation in Spain, which was quite a lot of work to start this. It's like it's a charitable foundation called Despierta al Amor, Awaken to Love in Spanish. So yeah, we have, we have some foundation to begin there.
Yeah, we actually have we don't have a desire to personally own things. We have no personal desire for anything in the world. We don't have a personal agenda. We don't have an idea of what things should be or look like. We are completely committed to being vessels for God to work through. And whatever that looks like, that's what we're wanting to do. So this is where we're guided to be, in this sweet little retreat center outside of Malaga, Spain. And it's this beautiful blessing. We already have a small community that's forming around us, and several people who are just jumped in with us and are ready to do all of their inner work to wake up from this experience that we're in and know the truth of what we are. So it's really joyful to be kind of hand in hand with people who have the same purpose, which is to let go of all grievances, all judgments, and to remember that we are nothing but love.
And community is very useful for that, because there's a lot of triggers when you live with people. It's a lot, the ego gets triggered and stuff's coming up. But we have, every day we sit down and we talk about the mind and what's there and what's coming up. We live by no private thoughts, so we allow everything to be talked about. Sometimes the ego wants to protect, always the ego wants to protect, and people don't want to be open, So this is a very strong willingness, very strong commitment to actually speak about the stuff that the ego would keep secret. So it's very healing, and it's like very fast healing to live like this together. And we feel like this is our community too, because we were invited to come here. Julie, Helen, Grace, Richard, because they live here. They have their own community, and we meet them pretty much every week online in our Zoom groups. And so it feels very, it's like this is our world community. Yeah. So we are at your service. We can dive into any questions or anything that you might have on your mind. We're here for this weekend. We're going to have a retreat starting tomorrow morning. What time do we start? 10?
I think 10 a.m.,
Yeah. So if anybody feels called to be with us in the retreat, there is room. You can just join in. So, and in the retreat, it's a lot of healing. It's going to be like an opportunity to clear blocks that are blocking the healing, they're blocking God's love from being felt. That's the focus, really, in the retreat. That's the only focus. So our retreats, the core kind of ingredient is that. So we can't really say what it's going to look like because we're guided based on that, based on the calling in the group. So, yeah, does anyone have any questions?
So yeah, the guidance I've been, I've known you. You were still with David, and while you were in community, you offered a workshop or a retreat with Greg on relationships, I believe. And I took that retreat, and I was really touched by the way that you teach. It's like you teach not so much with talking, a lot of talking, a lot of talking. It's more about direct experience, and so you know, whatever it is that you have on your heart, you know, we can bring it. And there is the guidance through is so clear. It's so healing, and you know that it makes you vibrate, like me vibrate, because I feel the truth, through it, and it's so amazingly helpful. It's been so healing over, especially in the last few years. The Zoom meeting, and every week, like I've learned so much on that I'm not guilty. Oh my God, and but it's in direct application with my own life. Like, it's very intimate, the way that you are with the guidance, with the teachings, with the course. It's like making it accessible, and it just flows, and it's so healing and warm. So yeah, I'm so grateful to have you and to be here. Yeah.
Thank you, Julie. So yeah, we can dive into any topic or anything you might have on your mind.
So with your community situation, you said no private thoughts, and then do you also, the second one, the no people pleasing?
Yeah.
So that's right up front for everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We practice that too.
Right.
Which is still a lot of undoing. A lot of people still want to please other people. This is a very, very strong pattern for most people. Some people have lived their whole lives just being people pleasers. So yeah, but yeah, that's the other guideline. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
In the Course, where it says that the world happened a long time ago.
Great here. She said in the Course where it says that the world
usually
happened
really loud. I'm always being told, shh. You're talking so loud. No, it's okay. When in the Course they say that the world happened a long time ago, when Jesus says it happened a long time ago, I need more explanation, I guess, about that. What does that mean?
Yeah.
How is that? Is that just the idea that right here, right now is already the past? And so every time I'm saying it, it's the past? So I'm never really in the moment unless I'm, because everything's the past? Is that what it means? But the way he words it says long time ago, feeling like...
Yeah.
Even though there's no time.
Yeah.
I
Language
get,
is
right?
limited.
Yeah.
You know, and he says that so that we will understand that it's over.
Hmm. That's all I need
He
to know.
even says it's stillborn. It was stillborn. It wasn't any life when the world came about. And he even says this, the history would not exist unless you made the same mistake in the present. You know, and he describes this tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. So in the mind of God, where everything is peaceful, where you are alive, like in my experience with the light beings, with my parents' higher self, you know, it's even beyond that, but that was oneness. That was an experience of the light and the love, and that's truth. I knew from that experience that this world is a dream. I knew, but I was back in the dream afterwards because I had lots of stuff to forgive. I have a lot of beliefs to look at. So yeah, the tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh, and in this forgetting to laugh, it became very serious. And it became murder and crime and hopelessness, misery, you know, war. Think of everything scary, you know, that you can think of in this world. You know, the Son of God, that's the Son of God not remembering to laugh. That's like something seems to become real, you know, that isn't real. So this is just a way of the Spirit is explaining that this world is a dream. And yes, it is over. It never even happened. And this is something, you know, intellectually it's hard to grasp. When I was in this state with David, when I had started to descend from this high place, I became very fearful, and I was sometimes even frozen in fear, and I was thinking, well, if this fall from grace, if this tiny mad idea, if this mistake could happen once, maybe it can happen again. You know, that was a very terrifying thought. And when I had that thought in that moment, David walked into the room and sits next to me on the bedside, and he said, "Did you have a question?" And I say, "Yeah, I'm really, really afraid. And I'm really afraid that this separation is going to happen again. Because if it can happen once, it can happen again." He said, "No." He just said, "No." You know, maybe he said, "It never even happened in the first place. It cannot happen again." And I realized that. But we have to face our fear. Like, these years I've spent with A Course in Miracles has been a time of facing my fears. And that's all. That's all we're doing. That's all we need to do. And sometimes it is stark terror. And Jesus describes that in the Course. It's, you know, you fear the undoing of your thought system as if it is the fear of death. And that's why we distract. That's why we want to dilute the guilt through so many means, so many things that we want to do, and we want to become someone. We want to have a self-concept, a nice, good self-concept, usually, you know, that can accomplish something. Usually like a kind, you know, even loving people pleaser. So, yeah, so, and that is the cover. So we need to invite our fear to come up, and that's how we will experience that there was never a separation. but we need to face the belief in separation. The worst, lonely, dark place in the mind is where we need to go visit. So, and we can feel it, you know, can feel God's calling, and we can postpone it. We can push it away and say, I'm going to do that later. First, I want to live this nice life I have. I want to get the stuff I want, I want, you know. So, and which is okay. God is not forcing us. There is no force, of course, but is it what we really want? You know, this is what I found. There is no time to waste. I had in mind, okay, everybody's going to need to release all the roles we have been playing. And I realized I played a mother role. I thought I was a very good mother. I was a pretty good mother. I liked being a mother, and I felt like I did a good job with my son. But when I started reading the course, I realized this is just a role I'm playing, and I have to let it go. It was Spirit telling me. That's what I needed to hear, and to release that mask. So I said yes to it, and I felt like everyone has to release the mother role, even if they're not a mother. But the belief in the concept, you know, in all concepts, we need to go through that process. So when I felt the calling, I said yes, because I could postpone it, but that would just give me more suffering. That would just, you know, why would I postpone God's calling? It was now. So, yeah. So I used to think, like, these years, like, how many years is it now? 17 years or something like that. It's a very short time compared to how long I was lost. I feel like my mind has been lost for eons, you know, and so much fear of awakening that it has been pushed away for so long, you know. And I thought, no, I'm not going to push this away anymore. It's time now. I want to face my worst fears. And fear of loneliness was one big. There are many different fears. Yeah, one was fear of loneliness, and I feel like I was given different assignments or places to be where I had to face those things. Like being in community wasn't just nice and having friends around all the time. No, sometimes I was called to go back to Sweden, to a house in the middle of the winter, out on an island, all by myself in the high snow. And there were rats in the house, and I was feeling cold, and I was, you know, and it was like my mind was calling forth different situations where I could fear, you know, could face loneliness and face different fear, and, you know, and I prayed a lot, and the patterns. At one point, Spirit started telling me, you have to look at your patterns. Look at your patterns. You know, and at first, what does it mean? What is this? My patterns. Yeah, my patterns of behaving around people. The patterns of thinking I'm safe, you know, by certain things I do and say, and behaviors to keep myself safe, you know, or simple patterns like, you know, brushing my teeth a certain number of times every day, or eating a certain, you know, all patterns. I just decided to loosen up from all of them and not have any kind of safety in what I do, but is it guided? Is this what I'm meant to do now? And I mean, I took it to the extreme. Even about going to the bathroom, I was like gonna say, I'm not gonna go to the bathroom unless it's guided. I think that's too extreme. We can be a bit kinder. But literally, I did transcend, you know, even feeling cold or You know, I felt I could sit with anything and see it just disappear. I didn't want to be a slave to anything, especially not body needs or, you know, I wanted to face it. Like Jesus says, you have a kingdom you must rule. Your mind is a kingdom that you must rule, you know, and not believe that we're a victim of the body or the world. But I wanted to experience that. And yeah, the Course talks about the hero of the dream versus the dreamer of the dream. You know, the hero of the dream is the self-concept. So we want to release that to realize we're the dreamer of the dream and not the victim in a dream world that where we are at the mercy of, you know, how we were brought up or what we think we must do, how we think we must behave, which is just roles that it's just a thin cover that is not, it's not actually very hard to release that. It's very nice to question that, and we get so many opportunities like you in your daily life. It's all the time an opportunity. Jesus says you either extend or project all the time. The mind either extends or projects, and it's a choice. So we can like become so clear, we can really look at our thoughts so clearly that we know which decision we're making. Am I extending or am I projecting? You know? And we can learn to just extend.
In how we feel, too.
Mm-hmm. We can find out how we feel, and then we know if we projected or if we extended. If we don't feel good, we projected.
So, what's the difference between feeling upset because we're projecting, or feeling upset because it's the darkness coming up, flashing up, and to be released? Like, sometimes I'm I don't understand. Sometimes I'm
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Maybe anger can be a sure sign that you projected.
Okay.
If you feel like those people, like, you know, but even that, even that needs to come up. Even,
Right.
you know, so yeah, so it's all healing. When you said yes to awakening, you can see everything as healing, and you will be very alert when you feel something, and you will also be very intolerant. You will, you know, like I feel with you, you're very intolerant when you feel something is coming up. You don't really want that. You want to work through it.
Yeah.
Jenny and Barret, can I ask you, how do you receive your communication? How, as we know, there's so many different ways.
Yeah.
How do you guys communicate with Spirit or Jesus, who I know as JC to me?
Yeah.
So how do you receive that?
Yeah. For me, it's just like a very loving. It's not really a voice, it's more like a thought or a feeling, or it's something I can decide to line up with. And if I say I just want to be in that stream, in the stream of Spirit, you know, then that's just it. So I hear through higher thought. It's higher thought.
And that's the same with Barret? Is that how you?
Yeah, I think that's a good description. I can give an example. The day before we were flying out, we were going to leave that evening to go to a hotel near the airport for our morning flight. And I went to start packing, just really a few hours before we were going to leave. But I thought, before I really start packing, I need to make sure I know where my passport is, because we had just moved into this place like 3 weeks before. And I started to think a little bit like, do I know exactly where my passport is? But I was sure it was in, one of a few places. So, well, I started to look. I looked in those few places. Oh, no passport. No passport, no passport. And I started to look everywhere I could imagine it would be. No passport, no passport. I looked through all those places again. I wasn't finding it. I called Jenny. I said, I don't know where my passport is. At this point we're supposed to leave in like 4 hours. But when I felt within, I felt really calm. I felt like there was no problem. It's like the form didn't matter. This inner knowing, this inner connection with spirit was clear. The passport was going to arrive into my hands. I actually had a feeling of like the passport being placed in my hand. We went to dinner with our group at 5 o'clock. We were supposed to leave around 7. Someone said to me, "Hey, you guys look really happy. You especially, Barret, you look so happy." And I said, "I am so happy." And then I shared with them, and I don't know where my passport is. It just doesn't, but this inner feeling of like, there is no problem. There's no problem. I mean, we talked about, do we need to go to the U.S. Embassy and get an emergency passport? Like, no. We need to change our flight plans? No. Like, it was clear. Passport was going to show up before we left for the hotel. But then 7 o'clock shows up, and still no passport. You want to share some? Or?
Well, I wasn't feeling as peaceful. Because I felt I am the one that's going to find it and give it to him. I mean, I felt that. But I didn't like the thought because I didn't know where I would find it. But I kept feeling some sort of responsibility that, and I was a little bit angry. I felt I'm just going to finish my own packing. I'm just going to finish doing dishes because I don't know how, and this is how spirit is. We don't really know how. And that can, through the filter of consciousness, it can feel uncomfortable because we're on the timeline here. We're gonna, check into a hotel that day, and it was just, to fit those two realms is sometimes tricky. So yeah, I was just gonna go about. I also looked for it a few places, but I gave up. I thought, no, I'm not gonna try because it doesn't make sense to look under, furniture and stuff where it cannot possibly be. So I was just going on with what I needed to do, and then it came for me to pack in a backpack, and so I found our 2 backpacks, and I had this nice feeling.
So of course it wasn't one of the backpacks we had used a few weeks before, and I brought my passport because I thought I might need it to get a post office box.
And so I don't retain things very well at all. Like sometimes I feel like spiritual dementia. I forget everything, but it was sort of a seed of a memory there that we had been in town. He had brought his passport because we were signing up for a mailbox at the post office, and we thought maybe we need it. So it was somehow, there was some kind of vague memory, but it wasn't like I remembered. So I think that was the irritation in me. It was like, it wasn't clear, And
we both
until I saw the backpack, I was like, I'm going to look in this pocket. And there it was.
Yeah. So it was all perfect. We all the travels went really smoothly.
So I held the passport in my left hand,
Yeah.
behind my back.
She comes up to me like this and says, "Pick a hand." I said, left hand. And she put it right in my hand, just like Spirit had told me it was going to show up right in my hand, be given to me. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So, Peace beyond understanding.
It's often like a knowing, just like a knowing. It's not like an audible voice.
Have you ever had experiences with automatic writing?
I am not.
No?
I-
Yeah, I've done that in the past. I actually kind of felt I didn't need to keep doing that. So I was kind of guided to let it go. But I feel like it's sort of like an automatic hearing in a way. Like there's just a hearing. It's not always like audible words, but it's just this experience of calmness and clarity. And if I need some words, welcome. They're given. There's the prayer in the workbook, to Holy Spirit to like kind of give me the words to speak, give me the steps to take. And we can really practice that day in and day out, and really minute by minute throughout our whole life. So, hello, welcome.
Thank you for being late.
No worries.
It's okay.
Right on time.
Sorry.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very smooth transition, and Spirit is using the consciousness that the ego made. So it's like, yeah, it's even what seem to be our own thoughts, we give them over, and it becomes this stream of thoughts with Spirit and stuff. Yeah. But I think you have a different experience.
Yeah. I just, as experiences go, it seems that there is no one way. I could be getting communicated to in my fashion, and you're going to be getting communicated to in your fashion.
Yeah.
With me, it's just so. And when I bought the Kindle, that it just changed when I started writing notes, because I started 3 years ago, and I read Course in Miracles probably I would say 85% of the time I have been reading it. I hardly miss a day, and I'm still only about halfway through it. And the only reason is that I pushed the note on my Kindle. I started with a hard copy, and I couldn't write it in there. I couldn't write my notes, and then I got a Kindle because I left my book up at the cabin, and I have to read it, so I downloaded it, and I started writing in the notes on the Kindle, and it just started to flow.
Yeah.
And it's not words that I even use. I'm up to now 1,034, and they're sometimes 4 or 5 paragraphs long, and so and I can read them the next day, and I didn't write that. No, I didn't write that.
Yeah.
I read them, and I don't know if anybody's ever tried reading Course in Miracles on a Kindle and just pop up that note and just start writing to comment on something in there.
It's probably
Has
your
anybody
way.
else had that experience?
I haven't tried
No?
that.
I'd be interested to see if anybody else try it and see what happens, because it came flowing out of me like crazy. So, but
It's for you.
yeah, and like others channel, others feeling of spirit, or all of them, or whatever your language of love is. I don't know why it came through, but I would suspect if somebody tries it, I think there might be others that would be communicating that way. Get
Yeah,
communicated.
it comes through the way that is most conducive for our healing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, and it's directed at me, but then it goes into parables and
Yeah.
parables like Jesus used, but
Yeah.
different ones? Like,
Yeah, maybe you share it.
it, yeah,
I'd love
I'm just curious to see how everyone else communicates. I find the Course in Miracles is a portal of communication. It's
Yeah.
not a book.
No,
It's a portal of communication.
yeah, that's it. The only purpose is communication. The purpose for our mind, purpose for our time, purpose for the body is communication only. It's a communication device. That's, that's the only purpose we have. And it's not just through talking or writing. It is with our thoughts. We communicate all the time with our thoughts. Our thoughts are so powerful, but we choose not to know how powerful our thoughts are because we're afraid of the power. So it's usually a lot of idle thoughts, a lot of random thoughts, private thoughts. We think nobody knows. We can sit in our own little head and think about things and judge things, judge things about the group of people, about the place, about our day, and nobody knows. It's our own secret thoughts. But no, it's not our secret thoughts, because it actually projects the whole experience we have. The whole experience we have. But we choose, when we're in those thoughts, we choose not to experience that. We choose to project that the world is happening to us, so that's the trick of the ego. So that when we are onto that, when we're onto the private thoughts, we have taken a big step. And that takes a lot of alertness. Like Jesus even says, nobody, including you, think you're worthy of consistent effort. Consistent effort of watching your mind. You think that nobody, including yourself, is worthy of that consistent effort. But you are. You have a question?
Oh, I just had an anecdote.
Yeah.
So like 2.5 years ago, I was like kind of depressed in bed, and I was like at the end of a relationship. I was eating whole pie, unmotivated, and I came across this song, and it was this guy who was pranking people. There's a train station in London. There's a public piano there. And this guy, who's a professional pianist, would come up to somebody who was playing and be like, oh, and he would dress up in different like worker costumes and stuff and say, oh, can you teach me that song? And he'd go, where's middle C? And then of course he would pretend, oh, he's just learned, and then he would go nuts on the song. And he's like a professional, right? So he came upon this 10-year-old girl who was practicing for her piano exam. And he says, can you show me where middle C is? And then he goes crazy on the song. I couldn't get the song out of my head. So I Googled the song, and I found the sheet music and everything, and I had a piano which had big cats and books had been sitting on it for years. I dusted it off, and then I was Googling more about this guy, and they call him Dr. K Boogie Woogie. So I saw his YouTube channel, and he had this other song which was made from that song, which only he made, which was a really hard song, and then I couldn't get that song out of my head. So I had that video transcribed in Brazil, and I got it made into sheet music, and I was pausing the video, and after months I realized I'm gonna have to get a piano teacher. So I got back into the piano, all because of this bloody song. And at some point, I bought a piano and I started playing on the streets of New West to provide a public piano. And this is all going to be Course in Miracles related, don't worry. A battery operated one, because of COVID, they took away all the public pianos. So my whole life changed. And I'm watching more and more of his videos. He's actually really, really famous. And he would not only prank people, but go to the train station and do YouTube lives and Facebook lives, and I thought, well, maybe one day I'll be able to meet this guy, and maybe I'll go to that train station. So I decided to go get a poster board, and I printed out pictures of him from the internet and this other person I'd been following from the UK, and I made this board, and then I thought, well, maybe I should make that a sign while I'm playing the piano. And I was like, help me make my dream come true. I want to go to London and meet this famous piano. And people would come by, oh, I love your story, healed from depression. And helped me get to London to meet Dr. K Boogie Woogie, and it was all amazing. And a couple of times I could feel the wheels turning, and it was like, no, not time to buy the plane ticket yet. And so eventually the time came, which was this last June. And so I sent him a whole bunch of messages saying, my name's Melody. I'm coming from Canada. I'm going to be in Hungary for a week. I'm going to be at the train station June 26th, that week. Please, could you meet me at the piano? He didn't have days of the week that he was there, but it was always 11 a.m., usually on a Wednesday, but he had no schedule. Didn't hear anything. And I practiced that song for over 2 years. It's very, very, very beyond my level, technically. And so I went to Hungary and I visited my relatives, and I got to London, and I woke up that first morning, Monday, June 26th. I was so tired, and I was like, oh, maybe, I have the whole week. I'm going to just go to the train station every day for a week and basically stalk this guy. Like, hopefully he'll show up. And so I go, no, you got to go. So, but actually the night before I got into London, and I had to go to my cousin's place and sleep there that night. I wasn't going to meet Dr. K, but I was at the train station. I just wanted to look at the piano. This was the first time I would lay eyes on the Elton John donated piano. So I came around the corner with all my bags from Hungary, and this man was sitting at the piano, and he was kind of cockeyed, kind of funny face, like there was something going on there. And it turns out that he's 90% blind Greek guy who escaped from his abusive mother in Greece and had a brain tumor behind his eye, which made him 90% blind. And he was just going nuts on the piano. And I'm meeting this guy, and he's super nice to me, hard to understand. But I'm thinking, okay, yeah, but I want to meet Dr. K tomorrow. I'm going to get going. So in the next morning I came, and I came up the London Tube, and I just went, he's fucking here. Feel it. And I started scanning. And I know he's here. Handsome too, of course. So I came around the corner, and there he was. Hi, Melody. What are you doing here? And I'm like, oh, he got my messages. And I'm just like, keep it together. And inside I'm like, yes. Right? And anyways, so I said, he goes, I got your messages, but I don't reply to people on YouTube because I don't know who's serious. And how you doing? I said, well, I really want to thank you. You helped me with my depression. I've been practicing your song. He goes, okay, let's hear it. And I'm like, oh my God, he's got his camera person there. So I'm doing the Passacaglia, and he comes and we do a duet, and then I'm dancing with this old Greek man, and it's like this old Greek guy's like where Dr. K was playing Mary Poppins, and I'm like, this is a dream. I love this dream. And I'm dancing with this old Greek man, and I have my red scarf that I got from Amazon, and I brought these funny, like, Canada googly headbands because it was almost Canada Day before I left, and dancing around like a nutter without my shoes on. And then he's filming, and he's going into the camera, so, tell us your story. I'm telling you, really helped me and this, and now I help other people, and they tell me about my mental health, and he's, oh, it's so nice to meet. Oh, yeah, great. And the camera stopped, and it was like, you do not exist to me. Like, he just dropped me like a freaking bag of rocks. And I was just like, what's going on? And I asked him if he'd go for coffee, and he said no, he's meeting a friend. And I went to this other coffee shop, and I could see him at this coffee shop. He went back to the piano, and he played with somebody else. And I'm like, this guy's a motherfucker. And I was like so upset. And then, yeah, there was more, but he basically was just like, I'm done with you. And I just, it was just, and I'm going, it's not me. And just that disappointment. I'm on this like emotional roller coaster. And I came back to the piano at the end of the week, and I was playing a song, and these young YouTubers were there, and I told them why I was there. They're like, "Oh, you came to see Dr. K? Yeah, we don't like him." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he doesn't care about anybody but himself." And and he's just all for the likes. And I could just feel the blood draining from my face. And it was like, oh, I could feel my feet for the first time in weeks. And it's just that sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. And speaking of the bodily functions, I had to take the biggest BM right away. I'm like, wow, I'm just letting go of this pile of shit, literally. And I came out, and it literally didn't, I almost like filled back up with spirit. It was like, and I was like, wow, I created this whole thing. And it means something, but it doesn't mean anything. And I got the gift. The gift was the music. Right? But I had made this big projection about what meeting this guy was going to be. And it was exactly as he presented. He was a guy who liked to play the piano and be on camera. He wasn't going to be touchy-feely and go for coffee with you, even if you came all the way from Canada, whatever. And so I could just feel myself like leveling out. And the other part of it was during this whole trip, I was just always reminding myself, I'd see a beautiful flower or something funny would happen, and I would say, and that's the miracle, and that's the miracle. And I can choose to be the happiest I've ever been right now. It's not about meeting Dr. K. It's not about meeting this other comedian there. All the ordinary moments. And the end of the story is the best part was when I first got to where my cousin was staying was kind of like, it's kind of like where Langley is to Vancouver to London. And I came in there at 10:30 late that night from Hungary. I was at this bus loop. I didn't know what bus to take. I asked this lady, and this guy, I could see by the look in his eyes, okay, special needs or something there. He looked typical, but he wasn't. And he goes, what bus do you need? Yeah, I think you need the 34. That one goes to this way, and this one goes to this way. And I said, yeah, I'm going here. He goes, oh, then you need to do this one. He was like the Rain Man of bus schedules. He was so happy. He was like, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm Canada. Wow. And he was just like a little kid. And so we get on the big, typical double-decker red bus. And he's like, you got to tell the driver where you're getting off. Make sure you tell him you're getting off at Ramsden Estates. I go, okay. And he runs ahead of me. He goes, driver, she's getting off at Ramsden Estates. So anyways, I get off. And that day that I went back at the end of the week to the train station and saw the YouTubers and had the BM and all that, came back to the bus loop, and there he was. And he goes, my friend from Canada. I've been wondering, how's my friend from Canada doing all week? And it was the best feeling, and he gives me this big hug, and we're hugging, and I'm telling him this, and I'm thinking about you all week, and I know he has. And we get on the bus, and I don't know if you remember that Forrest Gump when he's like waving from the shrimp boat, and he's super happy. And this guy is going to get off before me, and I'm thinking he's going to wave at me from the street. And I looked out the window, and he's going. and I wave at him, and it was like the best thing in the whole world, and it's the miracle is everywhere all the time. And I manifested this. I'm like, wow, from pausing YouTube note by note to the dream board to London, and I made this whole thing up. And it's all a ride, and it's not It's not real, but the miracle is real, and there's and I kicked myself for not spending more time with the blind guy. And I found him on Facebook, and I messaged him, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I should have. And he was willing to communicate and talk to me and treat me like I'm mattered. I'm like Mr. Boogie Woogie, but it's all good. So that's
a beautiful.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
For the ride.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
No, you are professional again.
No.
Yeah, we can attract all kinds of situations for our undoing. So this was very stark.
Yeah, and it felt really healing for me because I'm very sensitive to rejection and feeling like I'm nothing, and this person is invalidating how I feel, and it was just like I felt it, and then it just went, nah, we're just not gonna process it that way. And I feel like I'm just at this choice point in my life, like where I just want to tell my mom you did this and this and this, and I've got these conversations in my head, and I'm going, that's not the right thing to do. Don't do that. Let it go. And just getting caught up in the dramas at work. So lately, so this invitation came at a really good time for me, and I brought this my very first. I went to my very first painting class, and I did it's pour painting. You just pour it and then you tip it and you blow it and stuff like that. And I put my intentions, and I said that I wanted to release anger, and then it ended up that this kind of like this image of this woman coming out of the fire. And for me, I interpret it like that's all the trauma and, you know, the hardship and everything. And then the gold, the miracle, and the teaching and the beauty is in there. And then now it's still coming up, but I'm emerging from that and going towards just the light. So that's why I wanted to bring it.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And I would invite you to sing. Your grace is given. 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 I claim it now. Your grace is given. 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 Your grace is given.
Thank you. Lovely.
Yeah, well, this is a sacred space, a sacred gathering. Sometimes in these gatherings, people share things that they would like some help with, so we're available. Something wants to come out, something wants to be brought into the sacred vessel, sacred container.
Would you like to share something?
Just what I'm thinking is, how long, does this cleansing process take? Like forever, or
Yeah. I mean, I cried
Yeah.
so much, especially like pretty much 1 year. I cried like every day, and I didn't even know why. I just cried.
Yes. Music always affects me. I've been crying for 30 years straight. Please tell you.
But like I said earlier, it's a relatively short process compared to how long the mind has been lost, Yeah. But yeah. I mean, I feel for me it was like 2 very, very intense years, like 2 years, very intense. Then a couple of more years, a little less intense. You know, so it's like going in stages like that, less and less and less intense. But we get contrasting experiences, like you get those, you feel lost or you get into the deeper darkness, you know, and then you feel, how can I get back into alignment? How do I get back, you know, to spirit again? And these experiences get more intense because the contrast feels so great, you know, it feels so big, like the contrast between being in the wrong mind versus the right mind. But they're there also that we are learning to choose the right mind. But in the beginning, it's like there is no choice. We're just kind of stumbling and, you know.
Yeah, no, I had gone to a just like, you know, just tears and tears, and I wasn't, you know, expecting that, and had that thought then as well. And I guess the music always.
Yeah, and that's
triggers
beautiful.
that, so
Yeah, that feels, you know.
yeah, I guess
Helpful.
playing the guitar,
Yeah.
it triggered it.
Yeah,
How long is this gonna take?
yeah.
You know?
Maybe you listen to more and more music, you know, that helps you to cry. Because it's a good process, even if it's not very comfortable. It's you know you're awakening, you know you're on the right track.
Yeah, depending on where I am, like this on the weekend, I felt safe, so it was fine. Like I'm just okay, it's just coming out. You know. So I think that makes a difference too.
Yeah. And you wanted to share something?
Oh, one question wanted to come to the space from the book. Just wanted to ask. Paragraph starts as, I'm the only one who can perform miracles indiscriminately because I am the atonement. You have a role in the atonement which I will dictate to you. Ask me which miracles you should perform. And I paused.
Yeah.
Ask me which miracles I should perform.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it resonated with me in a way. And I love that, you know, teacher of God, student of God perspective, and taking responsibility to be the, you know, the channel or the vehicle, or, and this question, or maybe a statement, ask me which miracles you should perform. I wanted to bring it here and wanted to see if anything comes to you to share with that.
Yeah. Yeah, guidance. This is about guidance. And to constantly ask. I mean, and that's a beautiful, beautiful question to ask. You know, to Jesus or to Christ. What miracles do you want me to perform? Because that's, yeah, because it's so willing to answer us, to show us. I mean, the fact that we're here is because we asked that. You know, it's a miracle that we're here. You know? And he's, yeah.
And there's definitely certain things that we are conditioned to think, to feel, to look for, the familiar. that kind of we are drawn to. And how can we step out of that comfort zone where we can actually hear and see different questions or different directions or responsibilities?
Yeah.
Like,
And that's a very helpful prayer to ask. How? How can I step out of my comfort zone so that my mind is available? And that you will know, you will feel, you know. And this is what we spoke about earlier, there can be fear of following it. Because it's one thing to hear and one other thing to follow it. And often we hear, but we don't want to follow it. But that's where, you know, the willingness to follow, the courage to follow. That's how you make your mind ready for miracles, you know. And he says in, I think one of the lessons, every day should be devoted to miracles. Maybe it's in the miracle principle. And they're natural. And but you need to have the mind clear to experience the miracles that are natural and that are happening. Because when we are in the wrong mind, or in the deceived mind, or in the familiar, we don't feel the miracles. So it is, you're right on, you know, getting out of the comfort zone. It's all about making the mind open, ready, willing, available. So to ask, we can practice in everything to ask, to keep asking for guidance. Even to say, Holy Spirit, I feel like doing this right now. Is this in alignment? You know, and then practice hearing yes or no, or, you know, practice feeling it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is the key. Yes. Guidance is the key. It's beautiful.
I can feel a lot of anger coming up lately, so that's not new for me. So, yeah. I don't want to be this angry. I don't want to feel that. It feels like a monster inside of me, and then I feel guilty when I talk sharply to people, and I have a hard time knowing when I'm being assertive or aggressive.
Yeah, but you probably have suppressed a lot of feelings.
Oh yeah, there's just a lot going on. So
yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are around that. Or
I think it's a natural step as you come to a certain point. Like you cannot suppress it anymore. So it's like a volcano starting to erupt because it's been pushed down. But you know, when the mind awakens, it cannot push it down anymore. So it's very helpful to allow it to come up. But then it's the discernment, like we were talking about, like you're angry at your mother. And I think it's okay sometimes to have a straight talk or ask questions, or, you know, when you, but also to go out in the woods with it, take care of it with the Holy Spirit directly, you know, a lot of times that's feeling better. And once you have sorted it out and let it up in the mind, you can get clear. And if there is still something you want to communicate,
that's my fear. Where you know, I fear opening up the conversation at all because maybe I went to the woods and I had a great screaming fest or something, but I could be triggered like that, and I'm so afraid that I'm just trying to say, okay, look, when you do this, and this is how this is. And then I'm afraid I'm just going to blow up, right? So then I go, well, what's wrong if you blow up, right? Like, you can say you're sorry you blew up. And then I just get caught in, do I talk to her? Do I not? Do I talk to her? If I do, I'll do this. I don't know.
Well, we're also very caught up in right and wrong. Right and wrong doing, and that's like a trick of the ego. I should do the right thing here. should I talk or should I not talk? But it's all about state of mind, you know, and to clear the mind. And it could be through speaking up, but it's always about the prayer of the heart. Like what, you know, your prayer is healing, so you can't really go wrong with that.
Mm.